Welcome to Vermont Artists and Authors, where we interview great storytellers and artists from the amazing Green Mountain State. I'm your host, Barney Smith of StoryComic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the famed Vermont author and folklorist, Joseph Citro. Joe.
Barney, hi. Nice to be with you.
I know. And so we mentioned before the show that this is your third time on the show, which makes you officially get the moniker friend of the show. So you'll get bumper stickers and all that stuff. See, there you go.
Yeah, send them over.
So Joe, you came out with, I noticed, because I follow Joe Citro's work. I follow your work all the time. And I noticed that there was a press release that came out that there is a re-release of your book, The Gore.
Yes.
That's coming out. And it's going to be released. It's not released yet as of this recording, but it's soon to be released, correct?
It should be available here and there right now.
Okay.
I know it's available on Amazon. I've seen that. But it takes a while to get from there to any bookstores that are going to be brave enough to stock it. So we'll see. But it's out, it's available. It's its third life, really. It's books are weird, I don't want my books to die, but sometimes they go out of print or publishers go out of business, and in doing so, my book dies. So this is having a third reincarnation, actually, and I'm just delighted. I would hate to see it go, and ebooks are somewhat unsatisfying. Ebooks are kind of like the ghosts of books. A real book will pass on, and then the ebook will remain available. And now it's back incarnate. It's going to be with us for a while. I'm delighted to know that it's out there somewhere.
Right. So let's talk about The Gore a little bit. So we don't want to give away any of the juicy details of it, but could you kind of start by telling us a little bit about the novel and what inspired the story?
Happy to. What actually inspired it was the title, The Gore. When I came across gores in Vermont, I was just fascinated by these little parcels of land that are really in no town. They're created, I think, probably in the 18th century when Vermont was being surveyed, and surveyors made little errors. So there might be little triangles or little patches of land that were not in any jurisdiction. And in effect, they're what we used to call no man's lands. They weren't subject to any laws or anything. They were just little independent parcels. I think they were created by mistake, and if so, great. It seemed like a perfect place to set book. So I'd always wanted to write. I'm not sure if the term is still used, but what we used to call boys' adventures or children's adventures, things like the Swiss Family Robinson or Treasure Island or something like that. The sorts of books where we wet our teeth on reading and got real excited about. I always wanted to write one of those, and that's what I started to do with this. The main protagonist is a kid and his friend, and they get tangled up in something pretty mysterious. It starts when a guy who's working for the power company, whose name is Claude Levine, affectionately known as Lunker Levine, and he's out in the woods doing something, checking the power lines, and he sees something. We don't know exactly what it is, but it upsets him terribly and is apparently so weird and so disturbing that ultimately it leads to his suicide. So his son and his son's best friend and an old man that lives in that neck of the woods decide to go up into the mountains, up into the Gore, and see if they can discover what it was that Mr. Levine saw that troubled him so greatly. And that's kind of the launching pad. Um, in the book, there's a lot of interesting to me anyway. All my fiction is rooted in legitimate Vermont history and folklore, and there's a lot of it here. Um, in addition to the Gore, there's some mysterious stones that may or may not have religious significance. Um, there's a wonderful old coot by the name of Harley Spooner, who is pretty sure he knows what's going on and kind of wants to direct the action of the book in sort of a colorful, crotchety, old curmudgeonly way. And there's just a lot of background and history. And it's difficult for me to talk about it beyond that because it is ultimately a mystery story. And I have to, I can go so far as to say there are a lot of clues about what's going on, but I really don't want to say the solution to the mystery. And the whole book builds up to that revelation. So it was marketed originally when I originally wrote it. It was published by Warner Books, which was a big, probably arguably the biggest publisher in the world at that time. And, they weren't really interested in it, and they called it a horror novel.
Huh.
And it's not. It's a mystery novel, or it's a boy's adventure. But it was marketed as a horror novel, and it kind of got typecast that way. And I'm hoping in this new edition it won't be so easily dismissed. So we'll see.
So I just, as you were talking, I just wanted to let our audience know that gores, as far as my research goes, only exist in Maine and Vermont. There's 4 gores in Vermont and there's 8 gores in Maine. And they basically, it's a piece of irregularly shaped land left over from original surveying. So
yeah. And some of them got. There used to be more in Vermont, but they got taken into the towns that bordered them.
Right.
The one in my book is imaginary. I just made it up, but it's up in the Northeast Kingdom.
Yeah.
In a town called Eureka, and it's right. That's your neck of the woods, isn't it, Barney? Aren't you up in Northeast Kingdom?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you should read it.
Yeah, and so the thing about it, because there's 4 gores in Vermont, and 3 of those are actually in the Northeast Kingdom in Essex County. So,
yeah, it had to be there.
Yeah, it's perfect. I know. Yeah, and so I guess my next question for you then is you are the quintessential folklorist of Northern New England and Vermont in particular. And a lot of your stories have a folklore aspect to it that you put in. How do you weave folklore into your fiction?
Well, I started out writing just fiction, but I was in Vermont. I've always been in Vermont. I'm fascinated by the state, fascinated by the history and folklore of the state. And when I started writing, I had 3 novels in mind based on legitimate folklore. One was about a guy looking for the Lake Champlain monster. That was the first novel I wrote. And the lore is all there. I just had to create a situation and some characters and send them off looking for looking for Champ. Um, the next one I wrote was called Shadow Child,
Hmm.
and that had to do with the mysterious ancient stone structures that are found all around the state, and some local folklore, kind of arcane folklore about the existence of little people in the woods. And the third was this one, the Gore. And that was my ambition when I started writing. I just wanted to write these three novels. I wasn't even thinking about collecting the folkloric stories independent of the novels. But as I was working on the novels, I kept discovering more and more stories about Vermont. So at some point in the mid 1990s, I just decided to um, collect stories. Forget the fiction. The stories often are closer to fiction or more more strange than fiction. So I discovered a couple of things. One, I wanted to be the one to collect those, and two, nobody else had ever had. Nobody else had rounded up Vermont's weird tales. We have people like Abby Hemingway, who rounded up a lot of Vermont history and really devoted herself to collecting and kind of corralling all the state's history. But no one had ever done it with the weird stories. And somehow that seemed important to me. So I just decided that was my mission in life, collect those stories. So I put the fiction aside and started collecting Vermont's tales. And it seems to be a well that just keeps filling up. I mean, I'm not going to be able to collect them all, and hopefully somebody else will come along who can, pick up where I leave off. But I'm still at it. It's funny. It's as I'm talking about this, just the idea that no one has ever collected those stories, and I thought it would be important to round them up. And I guess other people maybe don't feel it's it's that important or something. I am happy to have done it, and that will be my contribution to the state when I move on to the next realm.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. Because I remember in a previous interview, you mentioned that it wasn't your job to judge a story, whether if it was true or not, but you wanted to collect them as a folklorist.
Mhm.
But you also mentioned that you have a pretty good way to know, you have a pretty good sense to know if someone's inventing a story and telling you.
Well,
Um, as of recent, as people still come and give you stories, is there a recent addition to your collection that you found extremely interesting?
well, things kind of slowed down during the pandemic
Right.
because I had to be out chasing these stories and actually interviewing people. In many cases, the people I was talking to were elderly or in danger of catching COVID. So things sort of slowed down. I think the last story that really caught my attention was one that takes place in Weathersfield or Springfield or maybe on that mysterious border between the two. There's a house there where for years and years people would look out the window and see a Native American
Huh.
on a horse going by the house. Now, here's the thing. They'd only see it through this one window. If they switched and tried to pick it up from another point of view, another window, he and the horse wouldn't be there. They'd only see it through this one window. And I thought that was fascinating. And I started to look into it and I made contact with the people there. And the house has been in the family for like generations. And generation after generation, people have seen this Native American riding by on the horse, but he's not there in the real world. He's just there in the world that you can see through this one particular window. That's weird. But apparently, somewhere along, one of the owners was just fed up with it and boarded up the window. So, so you can go there and you can see where the window was, and nobody's got an explanation. So to me, that's fascinating. In other words, being in this world, the world that you and I are in, but if you look through one particular window, you'll see another world. That's fascinating. I could probably build a story, maybe not a whole novel, but I could probably build a story around that.
Now, so getting back to the Gore, what do you hope readers take away from the Gore?
Well, I there is definitely a message in the heart of the book, but
Mm,
if I tell you what that message is, it's going to be it's it's a very benevolent book. I'll say that. And on the surface, it might seem to be sort of horrific and scary, in the same way that Treasure Island is scary because of the battles and the pirates and everything. But at its heart, there's something good and something golden right at the heart of
mm.
this book. So that's really all I can say. And some readers will pick up on it and some won't. But I just hope it makes the world a better place in which to live.
Mm. Now, because you mentioned this is a re-release of the book, did you change it at all from the original publication?
Not at all. None at all.
Okay.
I added um, just an afterword talking about some of the same stuff we were just talking about, where the book came from and what inspired it and where the truth and there's kind of a serpentine line between truth and fiction, and I tried to clarify that a little bit. But at the heart of the book, um, it it could happen,
Mhm.
or it could have happened at the point where the book occurs, and that was a few years ago. It couldn't happen now. I don't think.
Right.
No.
So, what was your favorite part about writing this book?
It's funny. It sort of wrote itself, really. I I I started with this scene of Lunker Levine going into the Gore and seeing something. I wasn't too specific about what it was that he saw, but I knew what it was. But the reader doesn't yet, and I I had to build on that, and I love these old time Vermonters. They're definitely a vanishing breed. Those that speak the language, if you know what I mean. Those that have the values that they had a century ago, and and I like to try to portray them, and that was fun. That was part of my adventure in writing the book, was trying to get these old guys just right. These are people that I sort of grew up among when I was a kid in here in Vermont. There were still some of these guys that would come to town in a wagon instead of a car and stuff like that. So it was. It was all true at one time. It's less true now. I think they're dying off, them old timers. Yeah.
Now,
Mm.
so who do you consider the target audience for the book?
Well, I, yeah, I, like I said, I started to write a boy's adventure, but it, it got kind of beyond that. I don't know. I would say any adult that wants to escape into a book. I think it's a good vehicle to get out of this world and into one that might be a little bit more pleasant.
Right.
Uh,
So, other than your books, Joe, what other authors do you like to read?
well, that's always I just finished reading a nonfiction book about Robert Louis Stevenson, and I've been reading a lot of nonfiction lately. I'm not finding the fiction that I want to that I want to read. I want to go back and read stuff that I read and want to enjoy again. I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird is working its way to the top of the pile, and I usually read Treasure Island about every year or every other year.
Oh, okay.
I
Huh.
I love to revisit Howard Frank Mosher's books. I do that from time to time. Right now, I'm I'm not reading any fiction right now. I'm reading a book about how the occult has influenced American politics. It's kind of an interesting thing.
No, so you and our mutual friend Bob Burnell are working on something new too.
Well, yeah, we started this series of little books about Vermont stories, and as I told you in that previous interview, it doesn't matter to me if the stories are, swear on a Bible, truthful, but they do have to be rooted in Vermont lore, sort of. They have to have roots. I'm not going to reproduce stories that somebody is just extemporizing. Um, it's got to have some tradition in the community, in the state, and those are what Robert and I have been collecting. And I've been writing them, and he's been illustrating them. And we've done 3 books together of that series, and we just sent off to the publisher a new version of the Ghost Guide, the Vermont Ghost Guide, and it's bigger and more stories, more ghosts. It's got lots more illustrations. Robert's very interesting to work with because he's really fast and he's good. I mean, he's got his art to a point where it takes me forever to write one of these damn things, and I'll send it to him for illustrations. And by the time I put my coffee cup down for taking a sip, he'll be back with an illustration. He's amazing. It's just amazing. I should write him up, I think. Uh, so yeah, and we've done. I think we've done 5 books together at this point, Robert and I.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Ghost Guide, one called the Vermont Ghost Experience, which is my admittedly most skeptical book. Um,
Hmm.
I get into the why of things a little bit more than just simply repeating the stories. I get more analytical about them.
Right.
And then the 3 little books that we've done together, small ones. Um,
Right. So Joe, what's next for you then?
well, I've got a few things that have, I want to. I've got 2 more novels that I want to bring back to life. So I'm going to do the rituals and the magic and see if I can't, bring those back from the grave. One is called Guardian Angels, and the other is called The Reality Conspiracy. Um, we're looking for a new title on that one because the title makes it sound like a little bit like science fiction, and it's not science fiction, but um,
Right.
so I got those 2, and I want to bring those back to life if possible. Um, and I'm working on something that may be a little closer to the boy's adventure that I tried to write when I was writing the Gore, which is going to be it's a novel that actually is aimed at young adults. So I'm working on that. That's kind of a, and then Corey Furman and I are working on a book of short stories, of my short stories. So he and Corey's illustrating them. He does wonderful work. So there you have it. That's and that, and depending on how much time I have left, I may get those things done, and I may not. And,
Perfect.
and if not, we can pick up on the Ouija board.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.